At 26, the royal queen humiliated the human, so he turned away in silence. Elias Varn walked through the enormous corridors of the royal palace, his boots echoing softly against the polished floors. He had been here countless times before, yet today felt heavier than any previous visit. The air shimmered with the cold, artificial glow of alien technology, and banners of the Empire's insignia hung from the ceiling, swaying slightly with the soft airflow. He kept his posture straight, his hands at his sides, and tried not to let the nervous tension show on his face. Today was not just any day. Today, he would present his discovery to Queen Lyra herself, the ruler of the empire that had long looked down on humans as primitive, fragile, and limited. At 26, Elias had achieved more than most humans ever could. His understanding of energy manipulation, physics, and interstellar travel was exceptional. On his home station, humans whispered about his genius, though most were careful never to speak too loudly. The Empire's spies were always listening, and Elias knew that one wrong move could bring disaster. Yet, despite his accomplishments, today he felt like a small boy standing in the shadow of giants. The court chamber was vast, stretching further than Elias had ever seen. The walls were made of a shimmering material that reflected light in complex patterns, almost like it was alive. Alien nobles filled the seats, their forms varied in shape and size, tentacles, scales, and multi-jointed limbs shifting gracefully. Each carried an air of confidence and superiority. At the center, elevated above everyone, sat Queen Lyra. Her presence was commanding. Her form was humanoid in a way, but her skin shimmered faintly, and her eyes glowed with a pale silver light. Her gaze swept over the room, stopping briefly on Elias, and he felt a chill run down his spine. "Human," she said, her voice calm but cutting. "You stand before me today to present your work. I hope it is not as limited as your species often proves to be." The words were polite, but the sting was unmistakable. Elias' chest tightened, but he did not respond. He had prepared for insults, for dismissals, for skepticism. What he had not prepared for was the public humiliation that was about to follow. Elias began his presentation, explaining his discovery with careful precision. He spoke of energy fields, efficiency enhancements, and the potential to improve planetary defense systems. His voice was steady, and he made sure every technical term was clear. A few of the younger aliens whispered to each other, clearly impressed, but the older nobles' expressions remained cold. They had seen humans before and expected mediocrity. Then it happened. A minor miscalculation in his demonstration, a single equation he had mistyped, was immediately seized upon by the queen. She leaned forward, her silver eyes narrowing. "Is this all humans are capable of?" she asked, her voice ringing across the chamber. "A minor error, and yet you expect to stand among the great minds of the Empire." Alien chuckles, whispers, and muttered comments filled the room. Elias felt a hot flush creep across his face. His hands clenched at his sides, but he did not flinch. He had expected mockery, yes, but the scale of this public humiliation was overwhelming. He could feel every eye in the room upon him, every sneer and smirk piercing through the walls of his composure. Elias could have tried to argue, to defend himself, to explain the nature of the minor miscalculation. Many would have, and most would have failed. But he did not. He turned his gaze downward, silently acknowledging the insult without giving it power. Every human instinct in him screamed to respond, to demand respect, but he knew that anger would not help. Instead, he held his silence like armor. Queen Lyra's expression softened slightly, though only in a calculating way. She had seen his restraint, and it intrigued her. Still, she allowed the moment to continue, letting the court indulge in the spectacle of a human brought low. For a moment, it seemed Elias was nothing more than a curiosity, an example of human weakness displayed before the galaxy. Finally, without a word, Elias turned and left the chamber. His movements were smooth, controlled, and deliberate. The court watched in silence for a moment, unsure of how to react to his calm departure. Some were confused, others irritated, and a few were silently impressed. The act of leaving without argument, without rage, spoke louder than any words could. Outside the chamber, the corridors were quieter. Elias' mind raced, but not with anger. He reviewed every detail of the presentation, every reaction, every whispered comment. He noted how Queen Lyra's attention had flickered at moments, how certain aliens had paused to consider his ideas, even as they laughed. It was a subtle victory, though invisible to most. Elias made his way to a private observation deck overlooking the city. The view stretched for miles, towering skyscrapers of alien design, skyways filled with flying vehicles, and the glowing light of distant planets visible in the atmosphere. From here, he could see the Empire's power, the wealth, the control. And yet, he also saw opportunity. The Empire had underestimated humans for centuries. They had mocked their creativity, doubted their resilience, and treated them as weak. But Elias knew something the Empire did not. Humans were adaptable, determined, and capable of brilliance beyond the imagination of alien rulers. He remained on the observation deck for hours thinking. He did not dwell on humiliation, nor did he allow anger to cloud his judgment. Instead, he began to plan. If the Empire would not respect humans, then humans would create their own path. Quietly, patiently, without immediate confrontation. The moment for action would come, and when it did, it would be undeniable. Back at the palace, rumors began to spread. Aliens whispered about the human who had not retaliated, who had left the court without begging for mercy or cowering. Some were confused by his composure, some scoffed at what they called foolishness. But among those who understood, the whispers carried a different tone: respect, curiosity, and caution. Elias had made an impression, even in defeat. As night fell over the city, Elias returned to his quarters. He sat at his desk, reviewing plans, notes, and sketches. Each discovery he had made, each innovation, became a tool for the future he envisioned. He would not seek revenge in the traditional sense. Violence, manipulation, or betrayal were beneath him. His plan was different. It was patience, brilliance, and quiet mastery. The Empire would see, eventually, that humans were not to be dismissed. In the days that followed, Elias avoided the court. He walked through the streets of the capital, observing the alien citizens, the guards, the mechanics, and the merchants. Every interaction, every technology, every system he saw became a lesson. He noted inefficiencies, weaknesses, and areas where human ingenuity could improve upon what the aliens had built. Even as the Empire continued to look down on humans, Elias' mind was already elsewhere. He thought of distant human colonies, of hidden stations on uncharted planets, and of places where humans could innovate freely. There, he could refine his discoveries, push beyond the limits set by alien minds, and prepare for the moment when humans would no longer be laughed at, underestimated, or humiliated. By the end of the week, a small group of humans had gathered quietly around him. They admired his knowledge, his patience, and his ability to remain calm under insult. Elias did not boast or seek followers. He simply shared his vision with those willing to listen, those willing to work diligently and quietly alongside him. The human network grew, a small but determined force preparing for a future that the Empire could not yet see. Queen Lyra, in the meantime, could not forget him. Though she had publicly humiliated Elias, she found herself curious about the human who had neither cried nor begged nor struck back. There was something in his silence, his composure, that she could not ignore. Aliens are often fascinated by the unknown, and Elias had become a mystery, a human anomaly. The first part of his journey was complete. He had faced humiliation, endured scorn, and yet had emerged unbroken. The Empire believed they had displayed their superiority, but in truth, Elias had already begun to turn the tables, quietly, invisibly, and with unwavering patience. The human who walked away in silence was not defeated. He was already preparing the future, a future where humanity would rise beyond the Empire's expectations, a future built not on anger or revenge, but on brilliance, persistence, and the quiet, undeniable strength of human ingenuity. And as he gazed out one final time over the glowing city, Elias allowed himself a small, private smile. The queen might have humiliated him today, but tomorrow, and the days after, would belong to humans. They would show the galaxy what it truly meant to underestimate humanity. After leaving the royal palace behind, Elias Varn traveled to the far edge of the Empire, to a hidden station that orbited a planet few aliens visited. The station was old and partially abandoned, a relic from a time before the Empire had fully conquered the sector. Humans had made their home here quietly, without attracting attention. It was far from the imperial court, far from the mocking eyes of Queen Lyra and her nobles. Here, Elias could work freely, unobserved, and without interference. The station was a quiet place. Its metal corridors echoed softly as Elias walked among the few humans who remained. They were miners, engineers, and scientists, all skilled in their own right. Yet most had been forced to live in obscurity because the Empire preferred aliens for leadership and advanced projects. They looked up to Elias with a mixture of respect and hope. He did not speak loudly of his humiliation at the court, nor did he dwell on it. Instead, he focused on what mattered: knowledge, innovation, and preparing a future where humans would no longer be dismissed. Elias immediately began his work. He started by reviewing the energy systems he had designed for the Imperial project. The concept was sound, but the technology the Empire had allowed him to access was limited. Using only what he could find on the station, he began to experiment, testing ways to increase energy efficiency, store vast amounts of power, and manipulate fields in ways the Empire's scientists had dismissed as impossible. At first, the progress was slow. Many nights he stayed in the lab, alone except for the hum of machinery and the occasional hiss of cooling vents. He made mistakes, adjusted equations, and tested prototypes that failed more often than they succeeded. But Elias was patient. Every failure taught him something new. Every setback only strengthened his determination. The humans on the station watched silently, inspired by his dedication and resilience. They could see that Elias was not seeking personal glory. He was building something far greater than himself. Days turned into weeks. Small successes began to appear. A power module that once required 10 units of energy to operate now functioned with 3. Communications devices could transmit signals farther than the station's current systems allowed. Shields that had once faltered under minor stress could now withstand much more. With each achievement, Elias' confidence grew, though he remained careful. He knew the Empire's spies could be anywhere, watching for signs of human rebellion or innovation. Despite his isolation, word of unusual activity began to spread. Scout ships passed near the station and reported strange energy readings. Aliens at the Empire's capital dismissed it at first. "Humans can do little beyond simple mechanics," one official said. Queen Lyra, however, paused when she heard the reports. She remembered the human who had walked away from her court in silence. There had been something unusual in his composure, something she could not ignore. Still, she did not act immediately. She believed she had the advantage. Humans had always been underestimated. Meanwhile, Elias continued to work. He built machines that could harness energy more efficiently than the Empire's largest generators. He designed systems for planetary defense that relied on clever human logic rather than brute power. His work was not flashy, but it was precise, and it was effective. The humans on the station began to adopt his methods, refining their own skills and helping to test prototypes. In doing so, they too began to feel the quiet pride of human ingenuity, of being part of something larger than themselves. Elias' greatest challenge was not technical, it was strategic. He needed to ensure that when the Empire discovered his progress, it would be too late to dismiss him. He worked carefully, building networks of communication, control systems, and energy grids that humans could operate independently of the Empire's oversight. Every device, every prototype, Every improvement was designed not for immediate recognition, but for a future in which humans could no longer be ignored. The first demonstration came unexpectedly. A passing alien ship detected the station's energy signature, far stronger than it should have been. Curious, they moved closer. Elias had anticipated this. He ensured that the energy emitted was stable and harmless, but also impossible for the aliens to immediately understand. The ship's sensors were baffled. The aliens reported back to the capital, claiming that the human station had somehow developed technology beyond imperial understanding. Some dismissed it as a malfunction. Queen Lyra, however, listened carefully. She remembered Elia's silence, his composure, and the way he had handled humiliation at her court. A part of her wondered, could this human truly be exceptional? Elias did not celebrate. There was no reason to. He had planned for this outcome, and he had more work to do. He began to test new systems, including improved shields, faster energy transmission, and more efficient communication networks. Each success was subtle, almost invisible, but it laid the groundwork for the larger plan he had in mind. He knew that when humans were ready to reveal their capabilities, the Empire would have no choice but to acknowledge them. One evening, as Elias worked late in the lab, one of the younger humans approached him. Her name was Mara, a technician who had joined the station after leaving a colony where humans were poorly treated. "Sir," she said quietly, "do you think they will ever take us seriously?" Her voice trembled slightly. She had seen how the Empire had treated humans for centuries, had heard the mocking laughter at the court, and had lived under their prejudice for her entire life. Elias looked at her, his expression calm but firm. "They will," he said simply. "Not today, not tomorrow, but they will. Humans are patient, we are clever, and when the time comes, no one will be able to ignore what we can do." Mara nodded, absorbing his words. She felt a spark of hope, a small flame of determination she had not felt in years. Elias had not promised victory, but he had promised preparation, and that was enough. In the weeks that followed, the station became a hub of human innovation. Humans from nearby colonies quietly arrived to contribute, bringing skills and knowledge. Elias guided them, teaching methods of efficiency, problem-solving, and creative thinking. Each human learned from him and from each other. They worked in silence, often late into the night, driven by the knowledge that their efforts were laying the foundation for something that would change the Empire's perception of humanity forever. The Empire continued to monitor from afar. Alien ships occasionally passed, scanners sweeping the station for irregularities. Some reports claimed the humans were experimenting with illegal technologies. Queen Lyra read each report carefully. She could not ignore the energy fluctuations she had seen. A part of her, however, still underestimated humans, convinced that no species so small and fragile could match the ingenuity of her empire. Elias anticipated this. He knew that the Empire's overconfidence would be their weakness. He had learned from the humiliation at the court that the best way to win was not through confrontation, but through preparation, patience, and precision. Every device he created, every improvement he made, was a step toward a silent revolution that would demonstrate the true power of humans without risking unnecessary conflict. One night, Elias stood on the observation deck, looking at the stars. The distant planets and fleets of alien ships glimmered faintly in the darkness. He thought about the Empire, about Queen Lyra, about the court that had humiliated him. But he did not feel anger. He felt determination, focus, and a quiet sense of purpose. He knew that humans were underestimated not because they were weak, but because they were unpredictable, resourceful, and willing to endure hardship to achieve greatness. Mara joined him on the deck, carrying a tablet filled with the day's test results. "Sir, we've improved the communication arrays again. The signals can now reach 3 times farther than before." Elias smiled slightly, nodding. "Good, keep refining it. Soon, every human colony will be able to communicate instantly, without relying on the Empire." Mara felt pride swell within her. For the first time, she realized that being human was not something to be embarrassed about, it was something to be proud of. As the weeks turned into months, the station transformed. It was no longer merely a quiet outpost. It had become a center of human innovation, a place where knowledge, creativity, and determination flourished. Every machine, every system, every improvement was a testament to human ingenuity. And through it all, Elias remained patient, knowing that the moment to reveal their progress would come, and when it did, it would be undeniable. Aliens continued to report anomalies. Some scientists were curious, some worried, and some tried to dismiss the human achievements as errors in their sensors. Queen Lyra, however, grew uneasy. She had underestimated Elias once, and she could not shake the memory of his calm composure at the court. She ordered more detailed investigations, though she still believed that humans could not outmatch the Empire. Elias, meanwhile, continued his work. He did not act recklessly, nor did he seek immediate recognition. Every day was a step forward, every experiment a lesson, every improvement a silent message to the Empire. Humans are clever, resourceful, and unstoppable when they are underestimated. By the time the year had passed, the human station was operating at a level far beyond what the Empire had expected. Energy systems were more efficient than the largest Imperial generators. Shields could withstand forces previously thought impossible, and communication networks allowed humans to coordinate across planets without the Empire's knowledge. And yet, Elias' work remained quiet, hidden from the eyes of those who had once laughed at him. He knew the Empire would soon take notice, and when they did, the world would see that the human who had walked away in silence was not defeated. He had simply been preparing. The Empire's ignorance had been their mistake. The patience, intelligence, and determination of humans had been quietly building, and when the time came, it would be impossible to ignore. Elias Varn looked at the stars once more, the glow of distant alien fleets lighting the sky. His silence at the court had been the first step. His patience on the station had been the second. The next step was approaching, though he did not yet rush it. Humans had learned to endure, to innovate, and to prepare. And when the time was right, they would show the Empire what true ingenuity looked like. For the first time in his life, Elias allowed himself a small, confident smile. The Empire had humiliated him, but in doing so, they had unknowingly given him the greatest advantage: time, focus, and determination. And humans were nothing if not unstoppable when given the chance. Elias Varn watched from his observation deck as the first signals of recognition reached the Empire. He had anticipated that they would notice something unusual, but he had not expected such rapid attention. Alien fleets hovered near the outer edges of human colonies, scanning for anomalies. Sensors from Imperial ships detected energy fluctuations, machines operating at efficiency levels the Empire had never seen. Reports of the strange human technology were sent back to the capital, creating whispers in every corner of Queen Lyra's court. Elias did not panic. He had expected this moment. For months he had prepared quietly, refining his systems, training humans, and creating devices that could operate independently of Imperial control. Now, the first step of their silent challenge was beginning. The Empire would attempt to understand, to dismiss, and to suppress, but Elias knew they could not match human ingenuity. The first demonstration was unplanned. One of the Imperial scout ships, curious and slightly suspicious, approached the station too closely. Elias had anticipated this and ensured that the station systems would respond intelligently. The ship's sensors picked up unusual energy readings, and before the alien crew could react, their systems were subtly influenced by human technology. The shields of the scout ship fluctuated, energy was diverted in unexpected patterns, and the aliens were left confused and frustrated. The crew attempted to report the anomaly immediately, but the readings were inconsistent. They could not determine whether it was a malfunction, a natural phenomenon, or something intentionally designed. Elias watched quietly as the confusion spread. No force had been used, no threat made, only the intelligence and precision of human innovation. Queen Lyra received the first official report and raised her silver eyes in surprise. The human who had been humiliated at her court was demonstrating capabilities that even her most advanced scientists struggled to explain. Some advisors urged immediate action, but she hesitated. She had underestimated Elias once. She could not ignore the possibility that humans were more capable than she had ever imagined. Meanwhile, Elias began the next phase of his plan. He sent discreet communications to human colonies, coordinating improvements to energy systems, communication arrays, and planetary defenses. Each colony adopted his designs, implementing subtle yet powerful upgrades. By the time imperial forces began to investigate, human settlements were operating in a way the Empire could neither control nor fully understand. At the station, Mara worked alongside Elias, coordinating the efforts of human engineers across multiple planets. She was impressed by the calm efficiency of Elias' leadership. "Sir," she said one evening, "they are trying to send ships to investigate. Should we prepare defenses?" "That is our strength," Mara nodded, understanding the subtlety of his plan. Humans did not need violence to prove themselves. They needed cleverness, preparation, and the ability to act when the Empire could not anticipate their moves. As weeks passed, the Empire continued to send observers and small fleets, attempting to study the human colonies. Every attempt was met with quiet brilliance. Energy systems functioned flawlessly, shields adjusted automatically to environmental conditions, and communication networks operated faster and more reliably than anything the Empire had produced. Each observation left the aliens more baffled, and some began to question their assumptions about humanity. The turning point came when an Imperial fleet approached one of the largest human colonies. Elias had anticipated this. Using the systems he had designed, the colony's defenses activated automatically. But instead of attacking, the systems demonstrated capabilities in a controlled, precise manner. Energy was redirected, communication stabilized, and environmental systems adjusted to protect both the colonists and the ships observing them. The alien commanders were stunned. They expected rebellion, chaos, or at least failure. Instead, they observed a colony that operated flawlessly under conditions they could not replicate. For the first time, they realized that humans were not merely resilient. They were capable of intelligent design, innovation, and strategic thinking beyond the Empire's expectations. Word of these demonstrations reached Queen Lyra. She convened her council, her eyes fixed on the reports. "This human, he walks away from humiliation, yet he prepares quietly and acts with precision," she said. Her voice was calm but carried a note of respect. "He has shown patience, intelligence, and control." "We have underestimated humans." Some advisors bristled at the acknowledgement, unwilling to admit the possibility that their assumptions had been wrong. Others watched quietly, considering the implications. Elias, however, did not seek recognition. He continued to work, quietly refining systems and coordinating human colonies. His goal was not to defeat the Empire through conflict, but to demonstrate that humans could operate independently, efficiently, and creatively. Every success was a message: underestimate humans at your own risk. One evening, Elias walked through the colony streets. He observed humans working together, improving systems, teaching each other, and solving problems. Their ingenuity, patience, and collaboration were remarkable. For the first time, he allowed himself a small sense of pride, not personal pride, but pride in humanity. Humans had endured centuries of underestimation, ridicule, and oppression, and now they were quietly demonstrating their true potential. Mara joined him on the walk. "Sir," she said, "do you think they will ever stop underestimating us?" Elias smiled faintly. "They may never fully stop," he said, "but it does not matter. What matters is that we continue to improve, to innovate, and to show what humans can do. Eventually, they will have no choice but to recognize it." Mara nodded, inspired by his calm determination. As the weeks continued, the Empire's attempts to understand human innovation grew more desperate. Scientists tried to replicate the systems they observed, but they could not. Alien engineers studied the energy flows, shield designs, and communication networks, only to find themselves outpaced by human ingenuity. Some began to question whether the Empire had overlooked an entire species' potential for too long. Elias watched all of this from his station, quietly satisfied. He had taken the humiliation he suffered at the royal court and transformed it into a strategic advantage. Humans were no longer passive, laughed-at subjects. They were active, capable, and intelligent participants in interstellar technology. The Empire had provided the catalyst for this transformation by underestimating him. The Empire's focus eventually turned to Elias personally. Queen Lyra considered sending an envoy to confront him directly, but she hesitated. Elias' actions were deliberate, precise, and controlled. Any confrontation could backfire, revealing the full extent of human innovation prematurely. Instead, she chose observation, curiosity, and caution. Meanwhile, Elias continued to improve his designs. He created systems that allowed colonies to operate autonomously, without relying on imperial oversight. Energy grids became self-regulating, shields adapted to environmental conditions instantly, and communication networks allowed humans to coordinate across planets seamlessly. Every improvement was subtle yet profound, creating a silent network of human brilliance that the Empire could not suppress. One day, Mara approached Elias with a report. "Sir, the alien observers have noticed our energy systems again. They are confused and unable to explain the efficiency. Some even suggest it is beyond human capability." Elias nodded, his expression calm. "Good," he said. "That is exactly what we want. They must see that human intelligence is not to be dismissed, that our patience and skill are unmatched when underestimated." They had endured ridicule, humiliation, and oppression, yet here they were, proving that their species was capable of greatness. Elias remained at the center of this transformation, but he never sought personal recognition. He did not boast, did not challenge the Empire openly, and did not provoke conflict. His strategy was subtle, precise, and effective. Every demonstration of human capability was deliberate, meant to showcase ingenuity without aggression. Queen Lyra, observing these developments, began to realize that her assumptions had been wrong. The human who had once been humiliated in her court had not only endured but had quietly prepared a network of innovation that surpassed the Empire's expectations. She could not ignore the evidence. Humans were capable of brilliance, patience, and strategic thinking that rivaled even the most advanced alien species. Elias continued to work in silence, guiding humans across multiple colonies, improving systems, and demonstrating capabilities that the Empire could not understand. Every device, every network, every improvement was a testament to human ingenuity, patience, and resilience. And through it all, he remained calm, composed, and deliberate, showing that true strength often lies in quiet determination rather than confrontation. The Empire continued to struggle to understand human innovation. Aliens attempted to replicate the systems, analyze the energy flows, and study the colonies, but they were always one step behind. Human ingenuity, patience, and adaptability were unmatched. Queen Lyra realized that humans could no longer be underestimated, and that any attempt to dismiss or humiliate them again would be a mistake. Elias, standing on the observation deck one night, looked at the stars. The Empire was aware of humans, their capabilities, and their ingenuity. But it had not yet realized the full extent of human potential. The silent challenge he had begun months ago was far from over. There were still opportunities, still improvements to be made, and still demonstrations to show that humans were not to be dismissed. He turned to Mara, who stood beside him. "The Empire sees what we can do," he said quietly, "but they do not yet understand it. They have underestimated us for too long, Soon, they will have no choice but to acknowledge our capabilities. And when they do, it will not be through aggression or violence, but through our intelligence, patience, and skill. Mara nodded, inspired by his vision. For the first time, humans across multiple colonies felt a quiet sense of pride. They had endured humiliation, scorn, and underestimation, yet they had achieved something remarkable. They had shown, without confrontation, that human ingenuity, patience, and intelligence were unmatched. And at the center of it all was Elias Varn, the human who had walked away in silence, who had endured humiliation, and who had quietly prepared the Empire to witness the true power of humanity. And as he gazed at the stars one final time that night, Elias allowed himself a small smile. The Empire had begun to notice, but it had not yet comprehended. That understanding would come in time, and when it did, the galaxy would see that humans were a force to be respected, admired, and most importantly, never underestimated. Elias Varn stood quietly on the observation deck of the human station, looking out over the distant planets of the Empire. The stars glittered like scattered jewels in the void, and alien fleets moved far below, scanning, observing, and trying to understand what humans had achieved. Months of patient work, careful planning, and quiet ingenuity had brought humanity to this moment. The Empire could no longer dismiss them. The humiliations of the past, the scoffs, the whispers of inferiority, those things had only strengthened humanity, preparing them for the day they would finally be recognized. The first signs of acknowledgement had already begun to appear. Reports from imperial ships described human colonies operating with efficiency and precision that rivaled or surpassed imperial standards. Shields adapted automatically to environmental changes, energy systems optimized themselves without intervention, and communication networks allowed instant coordination across multiple planets. The Empire's scientists and engineers could not replicate these systems. They did not understand how humans had achieved such advancements without the resources and technology typically available to their species. Queen Lyra convened her council. The room was tense. Advisors argued, debated, and suggested immediate action, but she remained calm. She had underestimated Elias Varn once, and she would not make the same mistake again. The reports made it clear that humans were no longer to be regarded as weak, primitive, or inferior. They were clever, resilient, and capable of brilliance. Humans have demonstrated a level of ingenuity we have dismissed for too long, she said, her voice steady. We must acknowledge their achievements and understand their potential. This is not a matter of punishment or reward. It is a matter of reality. Some council members bristled at the admission, still clinging to prejudice. Others nodded quietly, understanding the shift that was occurring before their eyes. Elias knew this moment would come. He had prepared carefully, ensuring that humans would not rely on force or intimidation to achieve recognition. Their advantage lay in skill, intelligence, and patient innovation. Now, it was time to take the final step, to reveal fully what humans could do and to demonstrate their place among the stars. The first demonstration took place on the outskirts of the Empire's capital. Elias coordinated multiple human colonies, synchronizing energy systems, shields, and communications networks. From a distance, it appeared almost ordinary, but those who observed closely noticed something remarkable. Every system functioned perfectly, adapting instantly to conditions, responding with precision, and performing in ways the Empire had never achieved. The demonstration was nonviolent, deliberate, and flawless, a clear statement of human capability. Imperial observers were baffled. They could not comprehend how these systems operated without imperial resources, oversight, or direction. Their instruments detected efficiency beyond the most advanced alien technology, and they reported these findings back to Queen Lyra. Even her most experienced scientists admitted that human innovation had surpassed their expectations. Elias remained calm throughout the demonstration. He did not seek applause, recognition, or confrontation. Instead, he focused on the precise execution of human systems, allowing the results to speak for themselves. Every observer, every report, every measurement reinforced the undeniable truth. Humans were exceptional, not because of luck or brute force, but because of intelligence, creativity, and resilience. Back at the palace, Queen Lyra studied the reports carefully. She remembered the day she had humiliated Elias Varn at the court, confident in her superiority. That memory, once a mark of pride, now reminded her of how easily humans could be underestimated. She realized that humiliation had not broken him, it had sharpened him. Silence, patience, and meticulous preparation had become his greatest tools. Elias decided it was time to communicate directly with the Empire. He sent a message to the royal court, not as a plea, not as a demand, but as a clear statement. Humans were capable, intelligent, and ready to contribute meaningfully to the galaxy. The message included data, demonstrations of technology, and proposals for collaboration. It was concise, precise, and impossible to ignore. Queen Lyra received the message and paused. She read the details carefully, recognizing the brilliance and foresight in every design. She saw immediately that humans were not merely surviving, they were excelling. Her advisors urged caution, but she made her decision. "Prepare to meet him," she said. "It is time to acknowledge what humans can do." He walked with calm confidence, wearing the expression of someone who knew their worth but did not need to prove it through anger or aggression. The court was filled with alien nobles, curious, cautious, and a little apprehensive. They had seen the reports, heard the whispers, and now would witness humanity directly. Elias presented his findings and designs to the court. He demonstrated energy systems, shields, communication networks, and problem-solving solutions that addressed challenges the Empire had struggled with for decades. Every display was precise, flawless, and nonviolent. He did not belittle the aliens, nor did he demand acknowledgement. He simply showed what humans could do when given opportunity, focus, and freedom. Queen Lyra watched carefully. At first she was silent, her silver eyes focused intently on the human who had once been humiliated at her court. As the demonstrations continued, she began to smile slightly, not in amusement but in respect. The brilliance was undeniable. The patience, the strategy, and the intelligence were clear. Humanity was no longer an underestimated species. It was a force to be recognized and respected. The court erupted, not in laughter or mockery, but in admiration and astonishment. Aliens whispered to each other, comparing notes, attempting to understand how humans had achieved such mastery. Some were fearful, realizing that the previous assumption of human weakness had been wrong. Others were curious, eager to learn from these new methods and technologies. Elias concluded his presentation with calm confidence. "Humans are not here to dominate, to challenge, or to retaliate," he said. "We are here to demonstrate what we can achieve when given opportunity. Our strength lies in our ability to innovate, to endure, and to collaborate. Underestimation is no longer an option." His words resonated throughout the hall, carrying the weight of truth, experience, and undeniable capability. Queen Lyra stood and approached him. The room fell silent. "Elias Varn," she said, her voice steady, "you have demonstrated what I once doubted. You have shown patience, skill, and brilliance beyond expectation. Humans will no longer be dismissed or underestimated in this empire. You and your people have earned recognition, respect, and a voice among us." It was a victory not won through force, but through intelligence, perseverance, and patient strategy. In the days that followed, human colonies were officially recognized as equals in certain aspects of the empire's technological and scientific endeavors. Humans were invited to collaborate on projects, offer solutions to challenges, and contribute their unique problem-solving skills. The empire began to understand that humans were adaptable, creative, and capable of thinking in ways that complemented alien technology and logic. Elias returned to the observation deck one evening, looking out over the planets and the fleets. Humanity had achieved something remarkable, not through violence or rebellion, but through determination, intelligence, and careful planning. The humiliation at the court, the mocking laughter, the underestimation by the empire, all of it had been transformed into a catalyst for human excellence. Mara joined him, carrying a small tablet with updates from colonies across the galaxy. "Sir," she said, "the humans are being recognized everywhere. They respect your guidance, your patience, and the work you have done. Humanity is no longer underestimated." Elias nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. "It was never about recognition," he said. "It was about showing what humans can do. Now the Empire sees it. That is enough." Not personal glory, not revenge, not defiance, but the quiet, undeniable power of humanity realized. Humans had endured humiliation, scorn, and oppression, and yet they had risen, demonstrating intelligence, creativity, and resilience that even the Empire could not ignore. Across the galaxy, human colonies celebrated quietly, sharing knowledge, improving systems, and working together in ways they had never been able to before. The network Elias had built continued to grow, connecting humans, improving technology, and demonstrating what could be achieved when a species refused to be underestimated. Queen Lyra, observing from her palace, reflected on the events. She had learned an important lesson. Underestimating a species was a mistake, and humiliation could not break determination when intelligence and patience were at play. She respected Elias Varn not only for his brilliance, but for the way he had transformed a moment of humiliation into a galaxy-wide demonstration of human capability. Elias continued his work, not as a ruler but as a guide, a teacher, and a strategist. He helped humans expand their knowledge, improve their colonies, and demonstrate innovation wherever they could. The Empire learned to listen, to collaborate, and to value the unique strengths humans brought to the table. And as he looked out over the galaxy one final time, Elias understood that true strength was not in anger or retaliation, but in patience, intelligence, and the quiet ability to transform challenges into opportunities. Humanity had been humiliated, underestimated, and dismissed, but through ingenuity, determination, and calm resilience, they had achieved what many thought impossible. The human who had walked away in silence had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to be human. The Empire could no longer ignore them. Humanity had earned its place, not through force, not through defiance, but through brilliance, endurance, and an unshakable spirit. And for Elias Varn, the victory was complete. The humiliation of the past had been transformed into a legacy of achievement, respect, and undeniable recognition. Humanity had risen, not because it demanded recognition, but because it had earned it through skill, patience, and brilliance. The Empire had learned a lesson that would not be forgotten. Never underestimate humans, for their potential is limitless when they are given the chance.